You push open the heavy metal door. The air is still and smells of ozone, forgotten paper, thick with decay and old plastic. This is the Deep Archive, a place few employees even know exists, tucked away beneath the lowest levels of the Cupertino campus. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting long, unsteady shadows across rows of unlabeled boxes. Decaying prototypes, wrapped in yellowed plastic, sit like forgotten bodies. Dust motes dance in thin light shafts filtering from a high, grimy window, illuminating the passage of time. You're here searching for something specific, mentioned in a cryptic footnote. A reference to Project Nightingale, a scrapped late 1980s initiative purportedly designed to reconnect the user to the soul of the machine. It was abandoned just years after the co-founder's 1985 departure, a major historical turning point for the company. As you trace dusty shelves in this silent archive, navigating the aimless period immediately following 1985, your hand brushes a small, cold object hidden in a crate. It feels strangely organic, unlike the brand's expected hard, precise edges. A quirky, lesser-known detail. You uncover marketing materials for forgotten products, internal memos revealing strategic confusion, and design sketches lacking soul. The core brand identity feels fractured, pulled in competing directions by committees, not visionaries. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind the disjointed strategy during this era. You find early documentation for Project Nightingale hinting at a desire for a more intuitive, emotional connection. A stark contrast to the technical focus that began to dominate. A symbolic motif, a simple, almost organic curve concept for a device component, appears in these sketches, representing a human-centric path ultimately abandoned. This room holds echoes of a company that lost its way, a desperate search for identity captured in these silent artifacts. You move deeper into the archive, transitioning from the energetic birth of the brand into the challenging years of the 1990s. This is where you truly witness Apple drifting in the wilderness. Without its original helmsman, the company navigated turbulent waters marked by confusion and missteps. The air in this part of the digital vault feels heavier, filled with the ghostly presence of clunky plastic prototypes and the phantom irritation of early software crashes, perhaps evoked from forgotten demo discs you stumble upon. This era was characterized by a succession of products that failed to capture the public's imagination, like the ambitious but ultimately ill-fated Newton Personal Digital Assistant, or the endlessly delayed Copland operating system, a major historical milestone that became a symbol of internal dysfunction rather than innovation. The corporate identity fractured, reflected in a chaotic product line and confusing marketing campaigns that seem to chase trends rather than set them. You see visual cacophony in competing, inconsistent design languages across different product divisions. One quirky, lesser-known detail from this period. Internal documents reveal elaborate plans for a modular Macintosh system codenamed Spartacus, featuring a built-in CD player and TV tuner, an expensive foray into the living room that landed with a thud. Brand historians still debate whether this scattershot approach was a desperate search for a new direction or simply a failure of leadership. Amidst the confusion, the symbolic motif of the organic curve reappears sporadically in design documents from this era, sometimes part of ambitious but ultimately shelved projects, other times simply sketched in the margins of meeting notes, a persistent, quiet whisper of an alternative approach to design and user interaction that never found solid footing. The emotional shift is palpable. A sense of despair and growing desperation permeated the company. A feeling of being adrift and losing relevance in a rapidly changing tech landscape, foreshadowing the near bankruptcy and the radical, painful steps that would soon become necessary. As the financial situation teeters on the brink, an almost palpable anxiety hangs heavy in the air at Apple. You see the frantic search for salvation, documented in unearthed reports and desperate internal emails. The company knows it needs a modern operating system, and fast, to compete in a world now dominated by Windows. This desperate quest becomes the major turning point of this era, leading down a path no one could have fully predicted. Amidst this turmoil, whispers begin to circulate, rumors of a deal, a lifeline, involving a small, struggling computer company founded by him. The possibility of acquiring Next Computer isn't just about software, it's about acquiring Steve Jobs, the ghost of Apple's past, and his potential return is viewed not just as a corporate transaction, but as an almost mythical, uncertain event. You uncover meeting minutes revealing starkly conflicting opinions within the company. Some hail him as a savior, others fear him as a disruptive force, a reminder of painful failures. It's like watching a corporate horror movie where the monster might just be the hero. A leaked confidential consultant report, perhaps ironically titled Project Lazarus, starkly outlines the significant risks alongside the potential rewards of bringing Jobs back. This period embodies a dramatic emotional shift, from utter despair to a nervous, almost fearful anticipation. Brand historians still debate whether the sheer desperation for a new OS blinded Apple to the potential internal chaos Jobs' return could unleash. You might even find a report analyzing Next's software design, referencing a subtle return to the organic curve philosophy Apple once championed, a quiet echo of where the company began versus where it desperately needs to go. Picking up from the turbulent times described previously, you step into the archive documenting Steve Jobs' return. The air crackles with an almost visible tension, the kind you feel right before a storm hits. The immediate aftermath is a whirlwind of abrupt project cancellations documented on frantic memos, restructuring plans, sketched out on whiteboards still smelling faintly of dry erase marker, and reports detailing intense internal pressure. This isn't a gentle pivot. It's a hard, brutal reckoning. Jobs moves with chilling efficiency, slashing product lines from over 100 SKUs down to a focused few, a corporate condoing on a massive scale. Layoffs follow, and a singular, often demanding vision is instilled, replacing years of diffuse efforts. The emotional shift is palpable. Shock and disruption give way to a forced sense of focus, underscored by a pervasive undercurrent of fear. Your gaze falls upon the documents detailing the design process for the iMac G3. This wasn't a smooth, iterative path. It was a battleground of conflicting ideas, impossible deadlines, and Jobs' relentless, often brutal standards. You see early plastic prototypes, rough and unrefined, alongside dozens of specific Bondi blue color samples, each minutely different, pinned to boards. Development notes capture the almost frantic urgency. Scribbled revisions, demanding feedback circled in red ink. It felt less like innovation and more like a desperate, high-stakes race against time and internal doubt. The symbolic motif of the organic curve takes on new significance here, while the overall aesthetic shifts dramatically towards bold, translucent forms. That earlier idea of a human, approachable shape perhaps serves as a stark contrast to the rigid demand for insanely great. It's a quiet struggle between past ideals of accessibility and the new, uncompromising push for perfection, hinting at the high price that would inevitably be paid for this intense turnaround. Analysts still question the reasoning behind some of the abrupt, sweeping cuts Jobs made early on, debating whether the shock therapy was truly necessary or simply a byproduct of his volatile intensity. Emerging from the vibrant splash of the iMac, you now step into an archive defined by acceleration. This isn't just a comeback story anymore. The brand isn't just back. It's transforming at a dizzying pace, expanding rapidly into the post-launch era. Public perception is one of awe and renewed hope, a phoenix rising from the ashes, captivating the world's attention. But behind the polished surfaces, you sense the atmosphere within is shifting dramatically. Intense secrecy becomes the norm. Product cycles blur into a relentless rhythm of launch and development, and a corporate identity begins to feel tightly bound to its enigmatic leader. You see glimpses of the Think Different campaign materials and design mock-ups for subsequent colorful machines and early portables. But the focus here remains on the emotional and cultural impact. That external adoration and sense of possibility collides head-on with the internal pressure cooker and high-stakes environment. It's a complex emotional landscape, widespread admiration laced with an underlying unease about the demanding nature of this new brand identity. Consider the early accessories, like the notorious hockey puck mouse. Its organic curve, once perhaps symbolizing human connection, now feels more like a purely aesthetic statement, a polished form prioritizing style over simple function, its original meaning subdued or lost. Brand historians still debate whether this intense pressure cooker environment was a necessary evil for the unprecedented innovation that followed. This era isn't just about products. It's the birth of the icon's shadow, foreshadowing the immense cult of personality around Jobs and the potential vacuum that looms over the horizon. You step back from the flickering screen, the archive's chill seeming to follow you even into the present. The story ends, yet the questions linger. Was this simply the greatest corporate turnaround in history? A masterclass in branding and design? Or was it something more akin to a resurrection, demanding a profound sacrifice, the soul of the old brand, perhaps, for the unparalleled power of the new? Building on the foundation laid during that intense comeback, the brand ascended to stratospheric heights. A major historical milestone arrives with the launch of the smartphone, instantly recognizable, symbols of innovation and status that redefine how you interact with the world. But look closer at their sleek lines. Do you see the ghost of that discarded prototype's curve in their forms? A memory of a path not taken, or perhaps a whisper of the human touch refined, almost perfected, but filtered through relentless polish and control. The relentless secrecy, the carefully controlled narratives, the intense pressure within the walls of the company. You might see this as a quirky, almost obsessive detail, but it speaks to a different kind of legacy, from near-death experience and a fierce, almost desperate need for control. A culture analysts continue to question the long-term implications of. The brand lives on, more dominant than ever, yet defined forever by the return of its founder, a figure whose myth now overshadows the company itself. You wonder if the pressure to constantly reinvent, to live up to the impossible standard set by the comeback, is its own form of haunting. The eerie hour closes its file, But the mystery of what was gained and what was lost in that dramatic return remains, echoing in the silence after the startup chime fades. Is this brand truly alive? Or is it a perfectly polished vessel for a powerful, demanding spirit that refuses to rest? As the echoes fade, you reflect on the journey, from humble beginnings and near death to a global titan. This brand's story is a masterclass in vision, resilience, and the transformative power of a singular personality. The lessons learned from the wilderness years and the intense focus of the comeback reshaped not just products, but culture. You see the enduring impact in design philosophy, the premium placed on simplicity and form, the meticulous control over narrative and experience. Sometimes feeling less like connection, more like a carefully curated reality distortion field. The cultural symbolism is undeniable. This brand represents aspiration, innovation, and for some, an almost spiritual devotion. It teaches that failure isn't final, but the cost of reinvention can be immense, perhaps sacrificing a degree of warmth or openness for ultimate perfection. The archive is closed, the story told, but the questions linger, a quiet hum beneath the surface of every sleek device. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it.